everybody. It is a gorgeous day out, and I wanted to give a quick talk today about FND and mental illness. I have functional neurological disorder, and I've had it now for close to 20 years. And in my case, I had pre-existing mental illnesses. I've spent most of my life struggling with depression and anxiety. I was diagnosed as clinically depressed when I was 9 years old. So, I've been dealing with all of this for a really, really long time. And when I was diagnosed, FND was called conversion disorder and was labeled as a psychiatric condition. And as a psychiatric condition, I needed to have the diagnosis confirmed by a psychiatrist, and the top suggestion was to get therapeutic counseling. Since then, things have changed a lot. FND is now recognized as a neurological condition, and neurologists are the prime doctors to take care of it. They also are the only doctors required for a diagnosis. And in a lot of ways, that's good news. It makes the diagnosis process a little more streamlined in that once you've got a firm diagnosis, you don't need to see a second specialist. And it also makes a lot of sense because FND looks neurological and the symptoms are neurological. And so people don't go to psychologists or psychiatrists because of seizures or unexpected movements or pain. You know, those aren't things people go to psychiatrists for, but they are things that people can go to neurologists for. The challenge is that now there's been kind of a severe overreaction on the part of some people, and I understand why, but the reaction tends to be, see, this is not a psychiatric condition, this is not all in my head, I am not making it up. Well, that's really hurtful for people who have, mental health conditions, because that's not made up either. They're real, they're significant, they have definite strong impact on people, and in many cases they need medication, and also in many cases, like FND, they can be seen, recorded, and followed simply by only or primarily through fMRIs and similar studies. This is true for both FND and many mental illnesses. So the distinction and dichotomy being made isn't super helpful for anybody. It puts more stigma back on mental health conditions, which already have a lot of stigma. And the other part is many people with FND, and honestly many people with any kind of chronic or physically disabling condition, can get a lot of support and help through therapy. Any disability is a traumatic experience in and of itself by its nature. You're suddenly losing aspects of your identity that are important and significant to you. And it makes you different from other people. And that's upsetting and scary and traumatic. So I think anybody will benefit from talking to a good therapist, from seeing somebody useful. And at the same time, it's very important for FND patients themselves to embrace that therapy can be helpful, that psychiatric medications can be helpful. There's two main things that have been proven to be useful for people with FND. One of them is an intensive PT/OT plus multidisciplinary treatment program. Usually they're short-term, about 1 to 3 weeks in duration, depending on the program. And hi, Warfel. And they can be useful and helpful but it can be hard to get into those programs, and it can take a while to get treatment. In the meantime, the other thing that's proven to be helpful are some form of anti-anxiety medication or antidepressants. They can't explain precisely why this works. They can't explain precisely how it works for depression or anxiety either, but they do know that it's related to stress-associated molecules and chemicals in the body that are either blocked or otherwise guided when the person has anxiety or depression. And it turns out for people with FND, it also helps. So the workaround they have right now is neurologists refer to FND as a trauma-associated disorder, which means for a large percentage of people, some kind of trauma happens. And when that trauma occurs, they end up with symptoms. There are people with FND who don't have a trauma that they can associate with their symptoms, and they haven't found a mechanism yet to explain, why they get it or how it works. But they do know that it's, that they have the same symptoms. They appear to have the same condition. It's probably like migraines, something where there's a lot of pieces to it and high complexity, and there's a lot of different detailed forms behind similar symptoms. They haven't gotten that far in the research yet. But I just wanted to step in here for a few minutes and talk to you guys and let you know that 1, FND is real, 2, mental illness is real, and 3, well, FND isn't a mental illness. It can be helped by some treatments that are also appropriate for mental illness. I mean, another thing that is commonly suggested is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is also used for a lot of people with mental health conditions. It's basically a form of therapy that teaches people to take a little time between something that sets them off and responding, to try to identify what their emotions are in those moments. If you can identify the emotions involved, you can often then manage those emotions in a different way or find alternative solutions to what's going on. It's something that many therapists talk about and many therapists can lead their patients through. And again, it is useful for people with FND, and it is useful for people with certain mental health conditions as well. Most of the neurological treatments so far, other than that focused treatment program, it's a little more challenging. The neurologists can see the FND. They can see that the part of the brain affected is associated with knowledge of control and is associated with the relationships between emotions and actions or movements. But they haven't been able to dig enough into the mechanisms or how the process works precisely. So I'm going to head out right now, and I'll be sharing more factoids about FND as this month progresses. But I just wanted to step in and say hi and just talk about this aspect, because mental illness doesn't get enough attention or enough press. FND doesn't get enough attention or enough press. And I think it's really important to not lump things together that don't belong, but also to acknowledge that processes for mental health processes to manage mental illness also help people with FND, even though the two are not the same. All right. So thanks so much for your time, and I want you all to keep thriving. Take care.